Good day, everybody. Thank you for joining. This is Two-Way Tonight, special Halloween edition. I'm Mark Halperin. Grateful to you for being here. Friday, a lot of news has occurred since the morning meeting. We're going to run through that. We're going to have a special focus, though, here for all you boys and ghouls. Love Halloween. On this character, Nick Fuentes. Now, I know enough about the community here to know that some of you know exactly who Nick Fuentes is. You're familiar with his oeuvre. You know why he's controversial. And some of you, maybe the older demographic, maybe, it's like, who's Nick Fuentes? Why is Mark talking about somebody I've never heard of? Well, this is such an important moment for the conservative movement. The cast of characters are connected here. Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, the guy who's the head of the Heritage Foundation, the president, the vice president, so many others, Meghan McCain, so many people weighing in on all of this. And our guest today, Rikki, Schlott, New York Post columnist, and Eliana Johnson are here, and they're going to help us try to understand for the lay people what this is all about. And Eliana has she's got like a PhD in all this stuff. Some of this is issues oriented. It's about Israel and Jews, but it's about more than that. Some of it is just personal. In my life, in my world, this question of what's going on with Tucker. I can't tell you how often people will say to me, what's going on with Tucker? How do you explain Tucker? I've known Tucker a long time. I say this all the time about people. I know 1,000 people who know Tucker better than me, literally. But I know Tucker a little bit, and I've known him a little bit for a long time. I did his show up in Maine, and I just don't have a capacity to hate people. I don't have the capacity to say, if Tucker does some things I don't like, that I'm done with Tucker, or I condemn Tucker to damnation. That's just not my way. And people say, well, we're not going to cancel somebody for speech. And other people then respond to, what if they said something just so awful? Is there nothing someone could say? I just don't have it in me to say somebody should be canceled or whatever. I have my theories about what's happened to Tucker. Maybe I'll share them today. Maybe I won't. But this war over Israel, Jews, and the propensity for people who make their living talking to say incendiary things. It's just an extraordinary phenomena. And one theory about Tucker is he says incendiary things, or he brings on guests who say incendiary things and then sometimes endorses what they say for the ratings, for the clicks, for the views, or to get a rise out of people, or he's an actor. So again, we're breaking format here. I'm not even going to do our sponsorships. I'm just going to play you, Nick, a little bit of Nick Fuentes, because I just want you to see. In my view, this guy's just a brilliant actor. I mean, he's maybe more than that. I shouldn't say he's just a brilliant actor. He is, amongst other things, at a minimum, he's a brilliant actor. He's a brilliant communicator. He understands everything he says is a hot button. Just play a little bit of the Nick Fuentes thing, just so people can start to understand who we're talking about here today.
J.D. Vance is getting squeezed, and he's going to have to make a decision. J.D. Vance, our vice president, spoke at Turning Point USA last night, and he was met with one Groyper question after the other. They said, tell us about your connections with Palantir. Why did you marry a Hindu if you're a Christian? They said, is the United States controlled by Israel? And J.D. Vance had to pander to his new Groyper base. He said, well, this president isn't controlled by Israel. America must come before Israel. He said, the Jews don't believe in our Messiah. He said, I married Usha when I was agnostic, but I hope she converts to Christianity. And the Israel lobby was not happy with his answers.
Okay, cut it off there. Again, if you've never seen him, perhaps you find that, as I do, jarring. I've watched little clips of him, but I watched his interview with Tucker. I watched his show, a couple of his shows now in full. I find his presentation style to be fascinating, jarring, a little bit upsetting, very theatrical. So here's what we're going to do. A couple words from a few sponsors, then bring our guests in. I'll run through briefly. We'll run through briefly news of the day. The president on the flight down to Palm Beach talked up a blue streak about 1 million topics. We could spend the whole show playing those and talking about them. We'll talk about a little bit, and then quickly, because Eliana has to go trick or treating. We're gonna talk about this complicated story, which, Eliana, there couldn't be a better person in America to walk us through why this story is so compelling tell the players without a scorecard. And again, a lot of what's focused the mind on this matter, besides Tucker platforming Fuentes, is the head of the Heritage Foundation first did a video basically saying, no big deal. Let's just talk it out. We love Tucker. We'll never depart from Tucker. And condemned Fuentes in a vague way. Today did a long post on Twitter condemning Fuentes with specificity. And so things are going to escalate. I can assure you of that. All right. So just a moment. Our guests will be here. If you want to get in on the conversation, please raise your hand. If you're here on the platform, no smack in the chat. You know the deal on that. First sponsor of the day is our friends at Cozy Earth. You can get 20% off the Cozy Earth products. CozyEarth.com, promo code two-way. That includes the bamboo sheets, viscose made from bamboo, temperature regulating, incredibly comfortable. Cover them up with the Bubble Cuddle blanket, also incredibly comfortable. As you know, I sort of love the Bubble Cuddle blanket. I can't say it well, but I do love it. Comfort and style, distinctive textured bubble design. Right now, you can get, as I said, 20% off all their products. Go to two-way. Are using the code two-way at CozyEarth.com. I recommend the pants to you. I recommend the sheets to you. I recommend pretty much everything you have there. What do they have? They have products that are soft and comfortable and breathable, and they fit perfectly well. So because home isn't just where you live, it's how you feel. Let's go home with Cozy Earth. CozyEarth.com. Use the promo code two-way for 20% off your full order. Thank you for your attention to that matter. And now, attention to another matter from another sponsor, our friends at CB Distillery. And this is a bigger discount, 40% off using the code VIP. If you've got nights where you just can't sleep, and maybe you've watched one or too many Fuentes videos and you're having trouble sleeping and you need to sleep, the products from CB Distillery can help you out. Over 2 million people trust the products of CB Distillery, made from the highest quality, clean ingredients, no fillers, just premium CBD. They are part of, for many, a solution to learn to sleep better, relax more, feel less stress, feel good in your own skin again. So it's an opportunity to try something new if you haven't tried it and see if it works for you as it does for so many. 40% off your entire order using the promo code VIP. Go to cbdistillery.com. Use the promo code VIP. Again, cbdistillery.com, promo code VIP. cbdistillery.com. Thank you for your attention to that matter as well. And I hope you try them and you get a good night's sleep, and you can thank me at that point. I'd be happy to accept your thanks. All right, here we go. Bring in our guests, and we'll run through the news. As I said, start here with the New York Post columnist, Rikki Schlott. Rikki, welcome back, and thank you for joining. Unmute. Tell everybody how long you've worked at the New York Post and what you like about your job.
I've been there for about, I think, 4.5 years now. Part-time at first, but now full-time. And I love that we're kind of everyone's guilty pleasure. I find that when I tell people I work for the New York Post out in the city, out and about, no matter what their politics are, either they say, oh, I love the Post enthusiastically, or they admit it kind of like in the guilty and embarrassed way. But like everyone either loves Page Six or they love our politics, one of the two. And it's been a kind of tremendous place to work. They plucked me out of college, and I actually never ended up finishing my degree. I left NYU during the pandemic when they raised tuition during Zoom school, and so it's been a great place to land. I'm very grateful to them.
I tell people if I was on a desert island with no internet and I could only get one newspaper delivered a day, it would be the New York Post. It's the most essential paper. Rikki and I will team up with colleagues from Two-Way and the New York Post on election night on Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Please join us. Go to tway.tv. You can sign up to join on the Two-Way platform. Election night like no ever, full participatory conversation like we do here every day. We'll be on at 8. We'll cover the mayor's race here in Gotham City, the Virginia governor's race and attorney general race, New Jersey governor's race. Looking forward to joining up with Rikki and others. So thank you for being here. Eliana Johnson, of course, editor-in-chief of the Free Beacon. Do you call it the Free Beacon or the Washington Free Beacon? Either one. I call it the Free Beacon. First of all, let's start with the priority. What are you doing for Halloween?
So, I live in a neighborhood that has older kids, but not a ton of little kids. But I have little kids, and the houses are kind of far apart. So we need to get concentration of houses. So I got to take my kids to my sister's on Capitol Hill. and like people there are super into Halloween. So we're being my daughters are super into Peppa Pig. So we're doing the Peppa Pig family.
You're all going as characters from Peppa Pig?
Yeah, like I'm Mummy Pig
Yeah.
and my little one is George Pig and my daughter's Peppa.
Yeah, Rikki, you know anything about Peppa Pig?
I don't really.
It's
Just wait.
incredibly compelling. Why is it so compelling? Why don't kids like Peppa Pig? They like the British accents? What is
I
it?
think the British accent's part of it, and then there's like a big part of it is they're all different animals. Peppa
Yeah.
Pig, Rebecca Rabbit, Zoe
Pedro,
Zebra,
Pedro Pony's one of my
Pedro
favorites.
Pony,
Yeah.
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 And then there's like new babies coming in all the time. So they
Yeah.
can, these are kids who are their parents are having babies and stuff.
Yeah. Is this store-bought costumes or is it homemade
Yeah.
Peppa?
Oh,
Store-bought.
I'm not making costumes.
Okay. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to try this. We've tried it before. It never works, but you two are geniuses, so it'll work. I'm just going to read off some stories and you guys just jump in and comment like if we were sitting at a restaurant table for three and I was like on my phone and saying, "Hey, Trump said this." And you guys would be like, "Oh, I can't believe he said that." Da 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 da. Right? Just follow along with me. Rat tat tat because I want to get to the Tucker thing quickly. Federal judges, two judges ordered that the Trump administration has to use reserve funds to pay for SNAP, even though there's a shutdown. And now there's a question: are they going to appeal? Are they going to comply? What do you guys think? What are they going to do? I think it's going to follow a district court judge. Or are they going to appeal?
Come on, that's like not a real question. This is obviously gonna,
they're going to
they're
appeal.
gonna appeal this for sure. I mean, my view on the SNAP was this is like one of the first real pain points of this shutdown, where real people are going to start to feel the effects of this, and where Republicans, who they have the majority of the Senate and majority in the House, and Democrats are saying like, you gotta do Obamacare subsidies. Like Republicans, that's not a priority for them. And this really isn't the way government works when Republicans have majorities in both houses and the presidency. So I think this is a way, it's a potential real pain point, and I don't see the administration caving on it.
All right, Rikki, do you think they'll appeal?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would also be curious to hear what you both have to say about Trump floating the idea that Republicans get rid of the filibuster to end the shutdown. That was surprising to me.
Yeah, well, he's said it before. I mean, John Thune and Speaker Johnson and a bunch of Republican senators all said, "No way, we're not doing
they
it."
shut
So,
it down, but yeah.
so I mean, I think it's probably dead because he's not going to convince them to change their mind. So I think, it's like the easy way out. If you're a partisan Democrat or Republican, just say get rid of it. But they're not going to. So I don't know. I think it's dead, right, Eliana? It's dead.
Yeah, it seemed dead to me. Too many senators came out against it. So.
Yeah. I'm not big at reading the chat, but I glanced at it. And I'm reminded now, are you about to be a regular in the commentary podcast?
As of next week.
That seems like a big deal, no?
Well, Mark, where it's like a very special committed audience. So big deal to a small number of people, I think.
Well, congratulations. That's like to be one of the premier podcasts in America. And is Mr. Continetti going to the Wall Street Journal?
He is.
What's he going to do there?
My understanding is that he will write a monthly column to start and a newsletter and be a participant in their podcasts.
Is he leaving? Is he leaving
their TV show?
Yeah,
he's leaving the Free Press.
Leaving the Free Press. Rikki, do you know Matt Continetti?
I know of him, but I don't.
He's literally one of the most talented people I've met in journalism. He's just a genius. But he's moved around now, right? This is like his fourth job in 3 years. I think, or third job in 2 years.
He's based at AEI, and then he can do lots of different things. I mean, it's kind of his job to do lots of different things. All right. At AEI.
All right. Well, anyway, congratulations to you both. That seems like two big jobs.
Thank
all right.
you.
We talked about SNAP. President. All right. I want to show you a video here. This is a Spanberger. Spanberger and Sherrill, the Democratic candidates in New Jersey and Virginia, vice versa, were touted as these superstar candidates, kind of more moderate national security backgrounds. We're going to win their races and lost for Trump's Republican Party, and they were both going to turn around maybe and run for president. And they've both been really bad candidates. Just they make tons of mistakes. Here's Spanberger. They'll probably both win, but here's Spanberger talking about Donald Trump and the economy, a soundbite that has been sent to me about 100 times today. Number 5, please.
Position yourself as a consensus builder, someone who works across the aisle. Would you work with President Trump on areas like job creation?
I think that, you don't work with the arsonist who burns down the house to rebuild it. And in this particular case, the individual who's responsible for an absolute attack on the federal workforce is not the right person to help rebuild our economy.
Rikki, does that seem like a good closing message? I won't work with the president on the economy.
No, definitely not. I mean, I don't think that's the way that you get swing voters and undecided voters, but it seems like she is widening her lead and she's not really in danger at the moment. So I don't know that that would be a deciding clip. It doesn't seem to be a close race. It seems that New Jersey is definitely more of the bellwether race to be watching at the moment. But that's my view.
Eliana, is that his tone deaf as all my emailers say it is?
It is striking that Spanberger and Sherrill were touted as, the next generation of moderate Democratic candidates, and they've both been so flat-footed. Above all, Spanberger is just boring.
Yeah.
She's not interesting to look at. She's not interesting to listen to. And on total give-me's, I mean, these are questions that you should be shooting back and forth with your campaign aides and have such easy answers to. That is like a gimme. And, Mark, the other day, I think on your podcast, you played Plattner's answer to a question that was, of course, that he was asked I'm trans and will you stick up for the little people like me? And he had a really good answer to a question like that. She should have had an answer like this. And the other thing she was asked maybe 3 weeks ago was about transgender athletes. I was this is the state of Virginia. Glenn Youngkin won over these swing voters who care about an issue like that. And again, she was so flat-footed and brittle. And so it's striking, they're going to need to find people who are not these two women, because I don't think these are their next superstar presidential candidates.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're just in a slump, like a second baseman, they got the yips. I mean, they've just not been impressive. And as you said, she is boring. I mean, it's just no two ways about it. All right, I'm going to run through everything President Trump said
Mark,
today.
One other thing I think is important about Spanberger, her answer betrays a fear of the left. So even though these are supposed to be centrist candidates, these people are petrified of the left. And 100%. I do think that's also why the shutdown is dragging on, and Democrats, even though the union representing all the federal workers has come out and said, okay, Democrats, time's up.
Yeah.
You got to reopen the government. They're petrified of the left because Chuck Schumer got flamed. The last time he struck an agreement and opened the government. They are petrified of their left flank.
You can see it. They cater to them, or at a minimum, they tiptoe through answers on eggshells. Is that what you do on eggshells? You tiptoe? Walk on eggshells? Tiptoe? I don't know. Anyway, they're both afraid of the left. You're correct. All right. Here are the things the president talked about today on Air Force One. We're playing none of it because we don't have any time. SNAP. Who's to blame for the shutdown? It's called the Democrats' Crazed Lunatics. Let's see, what else did he talk about? He talked about he said his meeting in China was amazing. He said they're going to do nuclear testing. He said Christians in Nigeria are being persecuted. Elon Musk was on with Joe Rogan, talked about Democratic plot to destroy democracy, alleged plot. He denied, back to the president, denied he was considering strikes on Venezuela. And he also announced remodel of the Lincoln bedroom. Let's look at that. Nothing more important than that. Number 20 here. Lincoln bedroom, this is a before and after. Let's see, I assume the before is on the left. Is that the before?
I think that's the after.
Yes.
That's the before.
No, I think that's the before.
This is the before.
It's green.
Rikki, what shade of green does that look like to you?
I think is that turquoise teal? I don't know.
Eliana, you have a word for that green? I don't know.
Like a robin's egg or
robin's egg green? Is that a thing? All right. Here's the after.
Yeah, someone says seafoam in the chat. That's perfect.
Seafoam is good. All right. After is like the black and white, kind of like a hotel bathroom more.
It feels like a Trump Tower bathroom.
Yeah, it's like a Trump Tower bathroom. Yeah.
And the robe is definitely a Trump Tower.
Yeah. I like the shower. I like the door. I like the door handle on the shower. Anyway, all right. Now we're going to talk about this Tucker Carlson thing. This is and I shouldn't even say it's Tucker Carlson. It's Fuentes. It's Roberts, who heads Heritage, Kevin Roberts, and the vice president. I mean, here's what our friend and two-way colleague Meghan McCain said about the statement from the head of the Heritage Foundation, who yesterday did a long video saying, in effect, we'll never abandon Tucker and we'll debate Fuentes, but he didn't single out anything he said he disagreed with, but he said we do have disagreements. So here's what Megan said about the Roberts video. It's number 9, please. Megan, in her normal understated way, tweeted this. Number 9. Here we go. Trash, just trash. So that's what she said about the guy from the Heritage Foundation. And he put out another statement. It's just so complicated. Rikki, just 38,000 feet. What's your general view of the Tucker Fuentes position and how people are reacting to it?
I mean, I am generally against the argument that you shouldn't platform someone, especially somebody who does have as much influence as Fuentes. I think the argument that sunlight is the best disinfectant is true, especially somebody who has so much reach with young men. I think a lot of his views are odious, and I think somebody who's slightly more mainstream, platforming him and demonstrating who he is for people who might be parents whose kid listens to Nick Fuentes and they have no idea who he is and what he talks about. It's kind of a revealing moment. I think that Tucker a couple times actually did hold his feet to the fire. There was a moment where Nick was saying, like, I don't date because it's the women and women are terrible. And more or less he was saying that you want to come home and have like a woman worship you. And Tucker said, like, no, you don't. Like, what are you talking about? That's the last thing that a man needs today is to have like a sycophantic wife at home. That's not what you want. And you don't know what you're talking about. And there were a few interesting and revealing moments. I give him credit on that front. But I think the last thing that we should be saying as a culture is like, let's censor him and put him in a corner, because that does kind of end up giving people more power ultimately and making them more extreme, in my opinion. However, if I were running a think tank, my first instinct would not be to like jump for joy that somebody did a podcast with him and to make a statement defending it necessarily. It seems like an unforced error and not really relevant to their mission, in my opinion. And so I would not make that move as the president of the Heritage Foundation, or I would say not really, it doesn't really implicate us, and let's just not make a comment about it. It's a podcast. Let's just move along and just let that go.
Right. All right. I agree with everything you said. Eliana, what is the source of Nick Fuentes' influence? He's 25. Why is he on Tucker Carlson's show, or why are people talking so much about him? Where does his power or influence or relevance come from?
Can I answer a question you didn't ask?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I think it's worth, and just stop me if this is not worthwhile, but I think it's worth taking a step back from like the immediate controversy, because as you mentioned, Mark, like the biggest sub rosa issue on the right for like the past year or 2 years, people have been saying like, what's going on with Tucker Carlson? And I think that betrays like this larger divide. And that's happened since Tucker was fired from Fox News and has had on, controversial guests who have said things about the origins of COVID and the way COVID was engineered, about Christian Zionists, about American Jews, about Israelis, the IDF penetrating the Pentagon.
Alex Jones.
Having Alex Jones on, et cetera, and it's caught people's attention. Now, when Tucker was at Fox, like he's very close to people in the administration. He was with like the president at the RNC. He was the source. He's very close to JD Vance. And so I think this became a source of concern for a lot of people who are supportive of the administration, is like, how influential is this person in the administration? And like, do these friendships remain? So in comes the Heritage Foundation with this long statement that like, we will never abandon Tucker Carlson. And, other people have made similar statements, but I was sort of puzzled by like, where did this come from? Their president put out a video statement, and it seemed to me like an answer to a question that like nobody really asked. Like, who went to Kevin Roberts and said like, are you going to abandon Tucker Carlson? Like, put out a video statement. And he decided to go out there and plant his flag in a really dramatic way and in a sort of ridiculous and comical way with Tucker Carlson, who had just done an interview with Nick Fuentes. And like, we saw Tucker Carlson do a very hostile interview with Ted Cruz. His interview with Nick Fuentes, who describes himself as a fan of Hitler and Stalin, was not hostile. It was friendly and warm. So my view is like this is now this sub rosa question has now reached the point of like major institutions on the right. And I think it's going to create incredible stress on that organization, which you saw in Kevin Roberts' follow-up statement, where he's saying like, oh, I mean, in your summary, he actually said like, we shouldn't try to cancel Nick Fuentes. We should debate with him.
Yeah.
And we should challenge ideas. But then at the same time, he said like, we need to focus our energy on the left, not on people on the right. And included on the right were, you know, Tucker Carlson, who he called a forever friend, will never abandon him, and Fuentes as well. And I think the thing that jumped out at me was he's saying we should debate with Nick Fuentes and with Tucker Carlson, but like those guys spend most of their days attacking people on the right.
Yeah.
You know, Fuentes, as you played today, is threatening JD Vance and mocking him for having to pander to, you know, his Groyper base. He's deriding him for having a brown wife, deriding him for having mixed race children, and threatening him and saying, if you denounce me, I'm going to go to Iowa and campaign against you and bring all my white nationalist clan against you. And Tucker Carlson is calling Christian Zionists like Ted Cruz and Mike Huckabee the worst people in America and saying they're afflicted with a brain virus. And so, like, sure, I guess you could invite these people to the Heritage Foundation for a reasoned debate, but people who say like Jews who don't agree with me should get the F out of America, as Nick Fuentes did, don't strike me as people who are open to, like, they don't seem to want debate. They seem to want to hurl personal insults at people.
Right. Again, this is all super complicated. Here's Roberts, head of the Heritage Foundation, influential Washington think tank. Here's number 10. This is the long tweet he sent, where he clearly was trying to, without inciting Fuentes and his followers, he was trying to pull back from the perception that he supports Fuentes. So he said, here's the top of the tweet. Yesterday, I said that I abhorred views expressed by Nick Fuentes, and the best way to fight anti-Semitic ideas was to challenge them head on. Fuentes replied on X by saying, quote, I don't know exactly what you abhor about my views. And Robert says, allow me to elaborate because there's plenty to condemn. First, the Heritage Foundation I denounce to stand against his vicious anti-Semitic ideology, his Holocaust denial, and his relentless conspiracy theories that echo the darkest chapters of history. There's so many questions I have about this. Rikki, you said you don't understand why Heritage is involved. They now seem involved up to their eyeballs, as does Tucker. Do you think this is is this just people sort of getting out of control, or are there really fundamental things at stake here?
I mean, I think that Tucker, I understand why he's involved. He was talking about Fuentes on his podcast, and like they'd had a back and forth, I think, in the background before this podcast came to fruition. And you know, they're both commentators. It kind of makes sense given the context of Tucker and the trajectory of Tucker's commentary that this might be a person that ends up on his show. That's not shocking to me.
Right.
The Heritage thing, I think they kind of put their foot in their mouth, and I don't fully understand still why they're doubling down. That second tweet, I think, makes them look a lot better than the first enforced error, for sure.
Right.
And I actually agree with the second tweet and saying that, like, kind of addressing some of these comments face on is a better response than allowing them to continue kind of unaddressed, because I think especially after Charlie Kirk's death, there was a kind of renewed attention directed towards Fuentes, and he did kind of have a weird meteoric rise in relevance, especially among young people. And I do think that that's not something that should just happen in some strange algorithmic bubble. It is helpful for the rest of culture to have some awareness of that. And censorship and quarantining people never really works. Like after Twitter like original Twitter before X started to mass ban people that were white supremacists or Proud Boys or affiliated accounts. We know that those same people, according to the Network Contagion Research Institute's research, went to platforms like Gab, and all the sort of nasty keywords that ended up getting them banned started to show up far more frequently on Gab. And it seems so shocking that now all these bans have been lifted on X, and where did all this hate speech and nastiness and racism and vitriol come from? Well, it has been festering, and it still existed on the internet, and it got a lot more nasty when you censor people and get rid of them and put them out of sight and out of mind, and all these people that agree with each other just go into a corner and start reinforcing each other in a feedback loop. And I think, you know, actually engaging with some of these voices and holding them to account, perhaps, I mean, Tucker's not necessarily the best person to hold Nick Fuentes to account, but that's a step in that direction to actually just demonstrate like who this person is and what's going on and who has influence. Because I think from time to time are these moments where an influencer will all of a sudden just have this like enormous influence and reach with young people, and parents are like, wait, who is this and where did they come from? And like Andrew Tate was that a couple of years ago. And I think it's better to acknowledge it as it's happening rather than all of a sudden millions of boys are having someone whisper in their ear and no one knew about it.
Yep. Well said. Eliana, I know you need to go. Just tell us what happens next on this. Like,
I don't know.
does Vance have to respond?
No, but I do think a lot of this is about Vance and 2028, and there's a real effort to force people to choose essentially between what I would call like normal Republicans and like Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. And like JD Vance has a lot of friends in both wings of that party. But I don't see a reason that he needs to make a choice now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he did respond. Turns out. So I'm going to read to you a few things. Eliana, I know you may need to go. So if you do,
well, now I want to hear this because I haven't seen it.
So he did an interview.
But I'll jump when I need to.
Okay. Thank you for being here.
Good.
Have a great holiday.
Thank you.
Send Halloween photos. I want to see the pig costumes. Pre-taped interview with Face the Nation. Margaret Brennan. JD Vance says that Nick Fuentes doesn't, quote, have any room in the MAGA movement. Called him a total loser for making fun of his wife's heritage. In addition, the president is going on 60 Minutes, doing an interview with Norah O'Donnell this weekend. First time he's been on since he sued CBS over an interview there. And Mike Huckabee also responded on this again. He had previously said, giving a platform and getting advice about Christianity from Fuentes is like asking Hannibal Lecter for recipes. Not sure that's the right metaphor, but it's funny. Watching the cringeworthy interview is watching Springtime for Hitler from the producers, but played for serious dialogue instead of for comedy. Perverse! Exclamation point. So two more reactions there, and who knows if Norah will ask the president about this, but he might. She definitely might. Eliana, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's take one question, just so we can, and then we'll do just a few more things, and then we'll go back to questions. And again, if you're here on the platform and want to get in the conversation, please raise your hand. Sarah, welcome in. I don't want to prejudge anything, but I'm guessing you're not a huge Fuentes fan, but maybe you are. I won't prejudge. Welcome in. Tell everybody what's on your mind for Rikki.
I'm from California, so for your election night coverage, I'm hoping you'll cover Prop 50.
We will.
The polling a few months ago was really against it. We like our Citizen Oversight Commission. It's one of the, jewels in the crown of the state of reforms. And then for political purposes, backroom deals, breaking a lot of procedural rules, Prop 50 gets on the ballot. And with all the money and everything, now it looks like it will pass. So your thoughts on California? Thank you.
About just the ballot measure? Rikki, you go first and then I'll go.
I'm going to bounce to you, Mark, because honestly, I'm not super up to date on it.
Okay. So you never want to say, take it away from the voters and see whether the polls might be wrong, but the polls have moved in one direction. And because they've moved in that direction, the Republicans are not raising money. And In California, you're not a grassroots state. It's about, how many tens of millions, not millions, but tens of millions can you raise to advertise on TV and in digital to try to influence people? So I don't know any Republican who's hopeful that it will pass. I don't know any Democrat who thinks it's going to fail. And it's been an extraordinary opportunity for Gavin Newsom, not just to have the symbolism of standing up to Donald Trump and being the savior for potentially saving the opportunity for Democrats to take the House majority, but also collecting email addresses and phone numbers and names for a potential presidential election. So if Newsom does get the nomination or does get elected president, it's going to be a huge moment for him. I think that it's very hard to pass a measure. No tends to win out over yes generically. I did not think a month and a half ago that yes would win. But the Republicans just did not raise nearly enough money. And Newsom, from the grassroots in particular, but also some big donations, has raised a lot, and a few other people like Tom Steyer. So I think it's going to pass, and I think they'll use the redistricting tools that are available to draw the maps and minimize the chances that it backfires. So I think you'll see them pick up 4 or 5 seats because of it. And then, as you know, they claim this is a one-time thing, that it's not permanent, that they're going to go back to citizen, the nonpartisan redistricting. But I don't know where this is going to end now, because every state is going to be reluctant, particularly if the House margin stays close, and it probably will. Whoever has the majority probably won't have the majority by very much. They're going to be inclined to not be the state that doesn't take advantage of the capacity to do this. So those who favor, not just in California, but in any state, nonpartisan redistricting, I think they're going to have to go back at it, because we had a flurry of states move to it, not a ton, but some, and there was momentum for it. And now I think it's going to be very hard to again, put your party and your state at a disadvantage. And we've seen extraordinary efforts by the vice president. The vice president of the United States has flown to Indiana twice to lobby in person legislators there. We've had Hakeem Jeffries go to California to make sure this stayed on track. He's going to Illinois. He's gone to other states. So this has become just the momentum's all in that direction, and California is the most visible, but it's not the only one. And it's hard to unilaterally disarm. If one party's doing it, it's just very hard to say our state's going to do it the other way and not take every advantage we could take. So that's my view. But thank you for coming on. Let's ask. Let me do this. Let me do another quick word from another sponsor, so I can get that in. And then we'll go back to your questions. Please, if you're here on the two-way platform, you want the conversation, raise your hand. Another sponsor tonight, our friends at True Classic. Go to trueclassic.com/two-way to see a bunch of great clothes, genuine clothes that fit well, they're priced well, and they started with a simple mission: bring premium, comfortable clothing to the masses, because looking and feeling great should not be out of anybody's price reach. They've sold over 25 million shirts to 5 million customers, have hundreds of thousands of 5-star reviews. It's not just about brand, it's about helping men, mostly men's clothes on there, fit right, feel good, tailored look without sacrificing comfort or blowing your budget. You can get their clothes at the True Classic clothes at Amazon, Target, Costco, Sam's Club, or if you want to buy them online, as I did, go to trueclassic.com/two-way and try them out for yourself. Again, you'll find they're affordable, they fit well, great combination. Again, go to trueclassic.com/two-way. All right, more questions for Rikki. Let's go to Steve and Michelle. They're maybe at a drive-in movie or a hop. What do you call those? What do you call those outdoor diners? Guys, can you turn on your video? It was on 2 seconds ago. Let's see. Don't see them anymore. It's like an optical illusion. All right, you guys will come back. Oh, here we go. Steve and Michelle, unmute if you would. Got a sunroof. You're in the car. Maybe at a diner. Where are you guys? Can you unmute one more time? So it's compelling watching you try, but I'm losing interest. Can you unmute? Look at this. The camera's twisting around. Now it's just like a Blair Witch Project. All right, you guys keep trying. Let's bring in Brent. Brent, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind for Rikki. Brent, can you unmute? There you go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not raise my hand. Mark.
You did not. You did not. Huh.
I did not.
Interesting. All right. Well, mute you back up then. All right. Steve, give you one more chance to unmute. There you go. Awesome. Well, welcome in. Where are you guys headed?
We're on our way to see our Hokie in Blacksburg, Virginia.
Amazing. All right.
Yeah.
And what kind of car is that? Are you driving like a bus? What is that?
No, it's just a bad camera angle on an X3.
Okay. That's the biggest sunroof I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for taking our question and sticking with us as we fuddled with the camera.
All good.
Here's our question, and it's kind of a twofer based on the big three elections coming up, and then the impact if the expected winners lose, and the impact that would have on the government shutdown. I've got my card, and I'm kind of curious as where my card shows up with where your panel is tonight.
So your question is if how will the election results on Tuesday affect the government shutdown? Is that the gist of it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Rikki, I don't know if the New York mayor's race will affect it, but what about the governor's races?
I'm not sure that I anticipate that it'll alleviate the gridlock one way or another. I don't know that I see an avenue that would cause it to alleviate. Do you, Mark?
Well, I've been besieged today with reporting unsolicited in many cases, because I've been doing other stuff, from Democrats and Republicans and lobbyists who have all said unidirectionally, it feels like this thing's going to end next week. And when I've had time, I've replied back and say why. And some people have cited the election results, but I don't find it particularly linear to say that either result's going to end it. Because right now, what we've seen up until now is anything that happens, both sides say, well, that's good for us because we've got the upper hand. So I would say that I believe that if it does impact the shutdown, it will not be linear. It will be an excuse. In other words, for those people looking to end it, it gives them an opportunity to make up some connection between the election and the shutdown. But I don't see any rational reason why it should. You referenced, Steve, that you've got a theory. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I think, you're right that the New York City mayor's race and the New Jersey race probably lesser of an impact, but it would indicate a problem in the blue or the purple wall really starting to have some issues. I think the Spanberger, from your points that you had earlier, and then what you guys were talking about this morning, I think mainstream media is living in a DC bubble that is just crushed by the left side media or left side advertising. I say down here in the South in the Tidewater and on our ride here to Blacksburg, which is along Highway 460, you pass some Confederate flags that surprisingly kind of strange bedfellows that Winsome Sears has a bunch of big posters in front of Confederate flags. So I think if Spanberger loses, that will be a big shock to a lot of folks who just feed off of DC media.
Yeah.
And they'll get scared.
I think that's right. I think that does make sense. Steve, thank you very much. Thank you for being part of Two-Way. Please drive safely. Grateful to have you on. Okay, Sue, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for Rikki.
You're muted still.
I have a question. Earlier, the comment was made that, Democratic legislators are afraid of the left. So when you look at the race in New York, 23% of eligible voters, I don't know if that's all voters or just the Democratic primary, came out to vote. And obviously there were a lot of progressives who came out and supported Mandami. So sort of off the same vein as Steve's question, will it have an impact? If Cuomo gets close, will it impact the way Democratic legislatures, deal with the progressive left? Or if he wins, is there any impact there at all about their fear of the left? Because when you look at, the whole of people who vote for Democrats, the progressive left is a smaller percentage. There's a much larger percentage of people who are not the progressive left.
Yeah.
Rikki.
I mean, I probably would not make that generalization that all Democrats are operating with the fear of like the tyranny of the minority of the far left. I think it's very contextual. I think if anything, someone like Kathy Hochul is operating with fear of the right and the threat of like an Elise Stefanik challenge. And if Mamdani is elected, I anticipate that she is going to be put in a position where she's going to have to prove that she's not like Mamdani and trying to court voters who might be convinced by a campaign that said, a Stefanik campaign that says, you know, Kathy Hochul's in cahoots with Mamdani and is far left. And I think that some Democrats, if Mamdani types start to become ascendant and get elected, are going to be incentivized to tack into a moderate direction and prove that they're not part of that, depending on the context of their political challenges. So I do think that there is a kind of a growing incentive in some sense to prove that you're not far left. I do think that like a lot of the wokeness and the kind of fear of like the squeakiest wheels has subsided, and there's a little less power in that, and there's a lot, it's a lot more culturally acceptable to say that that got exhausting. And I don't know if it's necessarily as true that everyone across the board is still allowing that very small minority to rule everything. Although, I mean, that still certainly exists in a certain subset of the left, I guess.
Sue, thank you. Great question. And I think that's perfectly framed for a response. So much of questions about anti-Semitism, American Jews, Israel in the news, both here in the New York City mayor's race and now with this Fuentes thing. So who better to bring in than a longtime community member, Haley. Haley, welcome in. Tell folks where you are tonight and what's on your mind for Rikki.
I know I look like I'm in the Arctic, but I am I'm on the beach in New York City. It's why it's so freaking cold. I did want to comment about the Fuentes thing, but I wanted to kind of put it in a bigger issue that I think is happening on the right that has kind of co-opted the left. And I think I heard Ben Shapiro say this like the best when he said that if we're not fighting the people that are coming in, these extremists that are coming in our party and trying to, let's say, I don't want to use the word platform because I don't like that necessarily, but not push back on them, then I think that we're going to make the same mistakes that the left has made over the years. And I just think it's going to make the right as susceptible as the left. And I think that there are so many characters that we can point to on the right these days that are just making a lot of people in the middle, like myself, very, very uncomfortable to even want to, you know, go in on either party, because I've seen how the left has been co-opted by a lot of, you know, I don't even want to go and say anti-Israel because I think because that's acceptable to me, and I'm an Israeli American. That's even acceptable to me, but there is a lot of anti-Semitism going around on both sides that we used to make a big deal when Trump would take a picture with David Duke. And, you know, or I'm sorry, if David Duke endorsed Trump. We used to make a big deal when Mamdani was photographed with, you know, when people were photographed with people that Mamdani was this week, like with the man who testified for the blind sheikh. Like, I think it's gone off the charts in both directions, and it worries me, not even just for the fact that I'm a Jew, you know, a Jewish person living in America. I think it's going to be a catastrophe for the West. I think this is so many red flags that you can look at, and just I'm very, very concerned about the just letting these people in. And, you know, we can have a big tent, but then again, where's my big tent? Where's the big tent for the Zionists these days?
Yeah.
Where's the big tent for the Israelis these days? And we're not allowed anywhere. So I just.
All right, Haley, thank you for that. Rikki, thoughts on what Haley said?
Yeah, I think the point that you made about Shapiro saying that like we should challenge people and have those conversations and not just let them go unchecked. Like I've been impressed recently, like in the past couple of days, he's been talking quite a lot about like the kind of horseshoe theory stuff that's going on right now in the reactionary right. And I think that there are very few voices on like the true political right that have been willing to call that out and talk about what to me seems very obviously like a kind of renewed and very reactionary kind of woke right awakening that I don't think is helpful. And I think in a lot of ways is mirroring and using a lot of the same tactics that the left used, which is really disappointing. I think there's like a new right-wing cancel culture going on that mimics a lot of the same vocabulary as left-wing cancel culture now that the right is culturally ascendant. I think there's a lot of language policing and almost like vice signaling that's taking the place of the left's virtue signaling on the right. And I think there's a lot of very concerning and alienating trends that are going on now that it feels like in a Trump presidency, the right has kind of the levers of power in culture and society in some ways. And I think that that's tremendously alienating to a lot of people that are centrist, including myself. I understand where you're coming from entirely.
Yeah. Haley, thank you for that. Okay, one more quick word from another sponsor, and then we'll get at least one more question. And so, again, please raise your hand if you want in. Another sponsor, cornbreadhemp.com/2way, 30% off your first order. If your life's feeling a little tense, a little uneasy, and you're looking for something to help you unwind, try the Cornbread Hemp's CBD gummies. If you're looking for a natural way to relieve aches and other discomfort, CBD gummies from Cornbread Hemp, they're formulated to work with your body, not against it. It works for many people, regardless of age. They're made to make you feel better, whether, again, it's stress or discomfort, whatever it is you're looking for, whatever it is you need. This is an opportunity for you to feel better. They're formulated using third-party lab-tested USDA organic for safety and for purity. Right now, two-way listeners, viewers can save 30% off their first order. Go to cornbreadhemp.com/2way. Use the code 2way at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/2way. Use the code 2way. Tell them that the entire two-way community sent you. That'll get their attention. All right, Andrew, welcome in. Thanks for being part of two-way. Raise your hand. I'll raise your hand. I'll unmute you and ask you to tell us where you are and what's on your mind for Rikki.
Yeah, I'm in Durham, North Carolina, and I listened to Next Up last night, and then I rewatched on YouTube this morning, and so it was that. So coupled with Megyn Kelly, JD Vance, I did a really incredible turning point performance the other day, and my point is with the Republican Party, I feel like they have two rock stars in JD Vance, and even before him, Marco Rubio. I didn't think that he was going to be as influential and as I guess pronounced as he is. He's really impressed me in his current role, and I feel like he'd be a very strong candidate going into 2028. I know Ro Khanna. I like Ro Khanna. I feel like he's a very astute person, and I feel like he'd be a very great candidate for the Democratic Party. But the one issue I have, him aligning himself with certain factions of the Democratic Party, that kind of puts me a little bit to one side on him. I know Rahm Emanuel is definitely there, really putting his message out there. I'm just trying to figure out how the Republicans can stay course with their message, because I feel like they have really great communicators. But the Democrats, if they go too far to the left, even their really impressive ones, if they go too far to the left of the party, they'll get stuck in that corner going into a general. So I guess your opinions, Mark, Rikki, how the Democrats can move more to the center and align with the general population, and with Republicans can stay on course with two really impressive people going to the next general.
Andrew, thank you for that. So Rikki, I think generally the question, elections are decided in the center, and you've got two parties now who maybe are not as more directly on center as they might be. How do you see that playing out?
I mean, I think that a lot of what ends up happening in general elections is memory holding. The perfect example that's really coming to mind right now is Mamdani's campaign, and a lot of his prior comments that we're just supposed to pretend never happened, like defund the police, etc. For example, Gavin Newsom starting his podcast and trying to reach across the aisle, and you're supposed to forget about his French Laundry situation and how he ruled during COVID and all of his history. I mean, I think that someone like him probably is just going to tax center and basically the classic politician move of gaslighting you out of remembering certain things that happened. And unfortunately, I think that people are pretty receptive to trying to forget that 2020 ever happened. And often they have like automatically memory hold a lot of the stuff that happened in that era. So I do think that Gavin Newsom might get like a get out of jail free card on that front for that reason.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Rikki, just talk about between now and Tuesday, how will you be spending your time in terms of reporting and writing and sort of gearing up for election day?
I probably will do a column between now and then. I've already voted, but I might loiter around my local voting stations and see who I see and who seems vigilant. When I went to vote, I noticed it was an older crowd, and that's what the reporting seems to say, which is different from what I noticed in the primary, that's for sure. But I'm also on deadline for a book at the moment, so I'm going to spend a lot of time hunkered down doing that between now and then.
Is it a revealable fact what your book's about?
Yeah, it's totally unrelated, but it's about dating and why young people are so miserable at the moment. So I'm trying to separate my brain into two completely separate topics.
Yeah, and what's the thesis of the book?
It's TBD. I'm doing about 50 to 100 interviews of young women, but a lot of what I'm kind of coming to is there have been some fallacies and maybe unfortunate lessons that like recent fourth wave feminism has taught women that are not helpful to leading them to like a fulfilling and happy and spiritually sound sexual and romantic life.
And when's that due out?
That is due out in January of 27 is the
plan. All right, so we have a little time to prepare.
I have to get it in pretty soon, but I have the runway between now and then.
Got it. All right. Again, this coming Tuesday night, we do election nights differently. Most places, like most content, is one way. Turn on, say you watch on Newsmax or CNBC or MSNBC. You have a bunch of anchors sitting there and they'll talk at you and they'll tell you what they're reporting, just what they're reporting, because they're not going to tell you on MSNBC, hey, CNN says this. We tell you everything. So that's one difference in our coverage. We'll tell you everything that's happening. If something important's happening on Fox News, we'll tell you that. If it's on CNN, we'll tell you that. And we're aggregating everything on social media. We're bringing it all to you in real time. And we're telling you what's really happening. We don't feel compelled to kind of hold things back. So if we know what's in the exit polls, we'll tell you. If we know what campaigns are saying privately, we'll tell you. And then the other big difference, of course, it is two-way. You'll be part of the conversation and we'll be taking your questions throughout the night. Rikki and I will be joined by her colleague at the Post, Lydia Moynihan. Some folks from Two-Way will be there. And then people from all over, we'll have other political experts joining. But the heart and soul of the coverage will be you all. And we welcome your questions, your comments, and then what you're seeing out there, particularly if you live in one of the places that's voting, California, New Jersey, Virginia. We'd love to have you be part of it. So this is an opportunity to participate in what we call conversations like no other. This will be an election like no other, an opportunity to see the evening through the eyes of the New York Post, through Two-Way, and through everybody out there. So please join us Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We'll cover the big races, and it'll be an election night like no other. And I think you'll see you won't have to flip around yourself. You won't have to have 7 screens going on social media, on different cable channels, local news, wherever you live, wherever you are, whatever your interests, whatever your politics. Join Two-Way in the New York Post this Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll spend election night with you. And I think you'll see, for my money, having participated in a lot of election nights as a viewer, been a reporter, been an anchor, been out in the field, I find this to be the most informative way for me as someone involved in the coverage to really know what's going on. So again, please join the New York Post and Two-Way this Tuesday night, election night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Rikki and Lydia and myself and colleagues from both organizations, we look forward to spending the evening with you. And have a great Halloween tonight and a great weekend. And I'll be back Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time with the morning meeting. We look forward to seeing you then. And Rikki, look forward to working with you on election night.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Have a great night, everybody, and a great weekend.